Let's find a yield point on the flow curve. Press the tube a little. The toothpaste doesn't flow. Press it a little more. The toothpaste still doesn't flow. Press it even more. Now it yields and starts flowing. Because now we have surpassed the paste yield point. On our flow curve, the yield point is this axis intercept of the y-axis. This is the amount of force necessary to make the material yield and start to flow. A material without a yield point immediately flows under shear. So its curve starts at 0. If Joe Flo used the toothpaste without a yield point, its flow couldn't be controlled very well. But since the toothpaste has been rheologically tested and its yield point has been adjusted, Joe Flo can safely dose his toothpaste and he will soon be back with a sparkling white smile. On the road, Joe drives by a brand new motel a friend of his wants to open, the Glossy Glow. The theme of the Glossy Glow Hotel are its colorful walls, which are being painted right now. A good thing rheologist Joe has passed by, because there's a problem. Even though the best painters have been hired, some of the painted walls are not looking good at all. What's wrong with the paints? Joe gathers all the staff and decides to solve the problem with a theoretical introduction and some hands-on testing.
Time is a highly relevant factor for rheology. Just as we face many different times in our lives, a material also goes through different times. The three most essential being rest, application, and recovery. A material like your paint rests in its container, then is suddenly moved, sheared, applied in some way, then recovers afterwards. As rheologists, we are interested in viscosity changes. But very often we also want to know how long a liquid will take to change its viscosity in each of these three intervals. To answer this question, a rheometer performs a so-called step test. The three intervals of rest, application, and recovery are simulated with a very low shear, followed by a sudden increase to a constant high shear, followed by a return to the low shear from before. This gives us a liquid's viscosity eta function over time, with which we can see how a material's viscosity changes during each of these steps, and in which time frame it does this. The paint problems in this hotel are a great example for why it is important to measure a material's time-dependent behavior. A major time-dependent property is a material's thixotropy. Thixotropic materials show a higher viscosity value at rest, but liquefy when they are sheared. Sometimes, we need materials to recover and return to higher viscosity values again. We need them to regenerate their structure after shearing, like paints, coatings, or sealants, for instance. With the rotational step tests we heard about before, we can control and adjust thixotropic behavior. So we can also control the time the thixotropic material takes to liquefy and regenerate. Here we have different cans of paint and a wall of the Glossy Glow which needs a paint job. Each of these paints shows a different thixotropy. See for yourself Which paint do you think has the ideal thixotropy for painting? As you may have guessed, paint A and paint B have probably been never touched by a rheometer. Let's look at a viscosity function of paint A during its application. Its viscosity goes down. So far, so good. We need it to become thinner so we can brush it. But here, what happens here? The paint is not staying where it's supposed to. It is sagging. Why is this? On the curve, we can see that the paint's structure is regenerating too slowly. It is too thin to stay put. Paint A does not have the right level of thixotropy for us. Let's look at paint B. Again, at least it's applicable. Its viscosity decreases when it is sheared. But then the curve goes up and the paint regenerates its structure too fast. This result is not ideal either. A paint that recovers too fast doesn't level out smoothly. This leaves visible brush strokes, looks uneven, and doesn't have enough gloss. If you were spraying your car with a coating like this, it would look patchy and unfinished. A paint that recovers too fast does not bring us to a levelness level we can live with. Paint C has been tested with a rotational rheometer. By mixing in rheological additives, it has been brought to the perfect thixotropic balance. After thinning out while it is sheared, the paint shows a perfect structure recovery time on the wall. It recovers fast enough to avoid sagging, but leaves just enough time to smoothly level out. With this paint, the glossy glow will look as glorious as it should. So, it's plain to see. When it comes to adjusting materials' time-dependent flow behavior, rheometers certainly are smooth operators.
Coming back out of the glossy glow, getting back in the car to drive home, Joe Flo stumbles upon evidence of the most important rheological influencer: temperature. He has left a tub of ice cream in the car, which he parked in the sun. The delicious ice cream has now, of course, turned into strange ice soup, because temperature has left its mark. Temperature is a very, very powerful influencer of viscosity. So it's very important that a rheometer also performs temperature-dependent tests. Usually, the temperature during a rotational test is kept constant and the shear load is changed. But in this case, the rheometer warms or cools the sample, all the while keeping the shear rate constant. The resulting viscosity function shows us the material's reaction to temperature, like in this example, in which the situation of Joe Flo's ice cream is simulated. Ice cream is precisely temperature tested, for instance, so that it shows just the right viscosity in the freezer, when being scooped, when entering your mouth. Temperature-dependent tests are especially important in the food, but also in the petroleum industry, where the pour point of oil needs to be determined, for example. There are numerous other influences affecting a liquid's rheological behavior: pressure, the pH value, the strength of the prevalent magnetic or electric field, and many more. Temperature tops them all by far. Many bars of pressure are necessary to change a liquid's viscosity like just a single degree Celsius can. A material's flow is highly susceptible to change. The slightest influence can change everything. That's why the highly reliable and accurate principle of rotational rheometry is so vital. So you precisely know how your flow will go. Joe Flo is now signing off and driving on. Maybe he'll take a trip to Paris and visit the Eiffel Tower. In any case, thank you for your attention and all the best for your onward flow.